Welcome to the next episode of Important Questions in K-12 STEM Education with me, Todd Hutner. And I always like to start off sharing a picture of me, my first year teaching. This is, as you can see, I'm not as youthful as I once was, but I am still excited about science and STEM education 20 years later. So today's question is, when am I going to use this? And I think this is a really popular question for students. I know when I was a student, I asked it. When I was a teacher, my students asked it of me. So a student asks this question, when am I going to use this? And when I asked this question of my own teachers, the response I always got was something along the lines of, well, you won't have a calculator, dictionary, encyclopedia in your pocket at all times when you grow up. Now, this response dates me a little bit because of the next picture. So clearly, I have not been in school in the past 15, 20 years as a student, but we can see in this picture that people are carrying around more computing power in their pocket than was in my entire elementary school. And so that rationale of, well, you're going to have an encyclopedia, calculator, dictionary in your head just isn't convincing for our students anymore. And when I was asking this question of my students, schools often focused on the acquisition and recall of information. So you need to recall the vocabulary terms for the parts of a flower, or you need to be able to define the difference between an acute, obtuse, and right angle, those sorts of things. And we would be assessed through tests. But research over the past 40, 50 years has shown learning is goal-directed. Okay, so when students adopt the goal to learn and use new ideas and skills, they're more likely to learn new ideas and skills. And the focus on recall that my teachers used was heavily directed by the goal for recalling information, for learning and recalling information. And so when the goal of school is just acquisition and recall fact, what a student really means when they ask this question, when am I going to use this, is why should I adopt the goal to learn this new piece of information, idea, or skill? Because I don't see it as relevant to me now or in the future. So why is learning Newton's laws or learning how to multiply by fractions, for example, in math, why is learning how to write a recursive piece of code, if we're talking about technology or computer science, why is this relevant to me today, or why might it be relevant in the future? And so when a student asks me the question, why do I need to know this, or when do I need to know this? My answer is now, I don't necessarily know, but my goal is to give you the tools to solve problems you will encounter in the future. The more tools you have, the more likely you will be able to successfully solve those problems. So what we're learning in class, both skills and ideas, are tools to understand the world, to critique the world, and to potentially solve problems that you identify in the world. And a great way to do this is through engineering design challenges. I want to be clear, engineering design challenges are not the only way to do this, but I think that an engineering design challenge is a really powerful way for students to learn and apply different ideas from all the STEM disciplines and do it in an authentic context that provides some rationale or a goal for needing to know these things. So what is a design challenge? A design challenge is purposeful. A designer begins with an explicit goal that is understood. It is constrained. So a designer must work within specific criteria and constraints, and it is systemic or systematic and iterative. So a designer must be willing to try, make mistakes, and refine based on data. I think that these three conditions that make a design challenge, or features of a design challenge, are really important for bringing out that when am I going to need this. So the purposeful nature of a design challenge provides the rationale for using scientific ideas and practices, and along with engineering ideas and practices, to solve the challenge. So here's a couple examples that I'll get to. Students are going to design solutions to actual problems. They figure out how to use core ideas, cross-cutting concepts, and science and engineering practices instead of just learning about them. They're not necessarily having to memorize the name of different glasswares. And so here's one example. This is a real thing that is happening in Texas, a real problem, that there is a large homeless population, and we don't have to, with our students, get into the politics of how to solve homelessness. But we can say, given that there are folks who are homeless, that there are homeless people, how can we use what we know about chemical reactions to design a hand warmer that can be distributed to people who are experiencing homelessness when there is a sudden freeze? So here in Texas, we don't always do well with extreme cold weather, and protecting people who are experiencing homelessness is an important problem. On the right in this image, you can see students using ideas about chemical reactions. So you have a sodium bicarbonate solution and calcium chloride pellets, and they're coming up with a way to sort of put the sodium bicarbonate solution into the calcium chloride pellets and generate an exothermic chemical reaction. So the question is, why do I need to know about exothermic chemical reactions? And the answer is, well, in this case, to develop a hand warmer to make someone's life a little bit better, and to maybe prevent some really adverse effects from extreme cold temperatures. Here's another example. So how can we use what we know about Newton's laws to design a better crash safety barrier to protect people who can't afford cars with the best safety features? So this, again, is a real issue and a real problem. People are constantly getting into automobile accidents, and we want to protect them. So what can we do to ensure and increase the safety of our roads? So we can build safety features into the car or the truck. We can also build a safety feature into the road. And so in this one, students are, again, using scientific ideas about forces to design a crash safety barrier. I think for me, the constrained nature of a design challenge provides the rationale for using mathematical ideas and practices to solve the challenge. So students will use ideas and skills to develop their design, to work on a budget, to potentially scale the design within given constraints. So here is sort of a sequence. Students are introduced to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. That's an actual problem that needs solving. They'll read about the problem and the design challenge. They'll watch a video about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And so what they're going to need to do is create a device that can passively collect and store trash from the ocean. Here, students are given design parameters, and you can, if you read towards the bottom of their parameters, they have things such as surface area, what is 400 square centimeters. The prototype should cost less than $20, but the lower the cost, the better. So we're building in some of the financial literacy. I think what's really interesting here is when students read 400 square centimeters, their first thought is to do a 20 by 20 square. And so really thinking about, like, what is area mean, and what does the word square centimeters or centimeters squared mean? Could you have a 40 by 10 centimeter device? Could you have a 400 centimeter by 1 centimeter device? And so thinking about what area means and those geometric ideas, potentially the mathematical ideas, if I wanted to then ask students to create some sort of function to describe the total cost of making X number of their devices, we can get into some of the algebraic nature of the engineering design process. And so again, when we're thinking about why do students need to know these ideas, we're getting some important mathematical concepts that's not just doing some worksheets a bunch of times. And then the systematic nature of a design solution provides the context for proposing solutions, for data collection, data analysis, and database decision making. I think that's really important. We are constantly asked to make decisions on data, not only in school settings, but across both our civic and economic lives. And so what does that look like? The systematic nature also allows students to develop some of the soft skills that are incredibly important, such as problem solving, weighing trade-offs, collaboration, and perseverance. So we might want to use more sturdy materials, but maybe they're not as environmentally friendly. And if it breaks, even though it's less likely, there's an environmental cost to that. So that trade-off there. And so that engineering design challenge provides the context for students to really think about why they're going to need to know these things. And so now a student asks, when am I going to use this? And I think with engineering design challenges, we can add today to the answer as well. And the goals for learning and using this information, whatever this is that they're asking about, include solving a problem today and learning to solve problems in the future. The other thing I think that's really nice about an engineering design challenge is we could do something to help our communities. So students can go out into their community and identify real problems that they think need solving, and then bring engineering practices, skills, as well as mathematical, scientific, technological ideas and processes and skills to bear on the problems they think are impacting their lives today. So I think that's a short way or a short description of how engineering can answer that question of when are my students going to use this, or when do I need to know this? When am I going to use this? And so are there any questions? And I'll give you a moment. And I see Lisa M has a question, and she's asking, how often should we do one of these during the school year? And I think that's a good question. I don't know if doing an engineering design challenge in, say, 8th grade science is something you can do all day, every day. But I think you could do 2 a semester, 4 or which would be 4 a year. Maybe you do 1 a semester in 6th grade, and then 2 a semester in 7th and 8th grade, moving up, something like that. So I think depending on what experiences your students have, engineering is going to be a different way of thinking and teaching and learning. And so it will be a little bit time consuming. My guess is a good engineering design challenge will take somewhere between 1 and 2 weeks worth of class time, if we're talking about 50-minute periods on 5 days a week. But I think that the benefits of all of those skills and really showing our students the integrated nature of the world, right? So when we're solving real problems, we can't just say, well, I'm not worrying about the math aspect of that problem because I'm in the science group, whatever that means. And so I think it's really important to think about that use of time, and how, even though it might be a little longer, it's a valuable use of time. So it doesn't appear that there are any other questions. I did want to leave you all with one last thing. Remember, I think it's also important. Engineering is about more than a college major or a potential lucrative career. It is a way to make the world a better place, and that's why students need to know this, whatever they're asking about, because at some point in the future, this could be a tool for them to make their world a better place. Some upcoming topics for the rest of the month of April for this webinar series. Next week, should we be afraid of AI in STEM education? What makes an effective PL experience for STEM teachers? I know with summer PL coming up, that's probably pretty topical. And then, is science literacy still a goal of science education? And then, what do we mean by the joy and wonder of mathematics? If you like these webinars and want to learn more about argument-driven inquiry as a way to bring effective learning to your students, check out our websites. And then also, if you are interested in following us on socials or me on social, you can email me, todd@argumentdriveninquiry.com. You can also follow me on LinkedIn at Todd Hutner, and then you can follow ADI on our socials as well. Want to say thank you very much for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday.